Hi, I'm Twila.
And I'm Natalie.
And this is Twila and Natalie.
Where we're going to chat with you all about the joys and the pitfalls of being a grown woman.
Indeed. Every week we ask a question. It's usually something about our lives. And then we make a point to discuss it and hopefully find the universal in all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this week's question. Okay, this is another one of my questions. I feel like my questions really speak to something that's going on in like my inner life.
Well, that's why we do this. This is our therapy, Twila.
Amen. It's much cheaper than the old bill, trust me. Okay, so this week's question is, do you make a bad first impression?
A bad first impression.
Yes.
I would say today, I do not think so, but I think I did for a long time.
Okay. Do you want me to remind you of my first impression of you?
Oh my gosh. Please do.
Speaking of, so we used to do this radio show together. And back right before, like, I think we only had like a couple weeks.
Yeah,
before we started.
Yep, we only knew each other a couple of weeks. We met because we were paired together for the show.
Right. So I was on a show previously, and they had decided to break that show up and send each host to help break in a new person on a new show.
Mm-hmm.
So my old radio partner was going one way, I was going another, and my boss had called and said, we're going to be doing this thing. And she had left me a message saying, if there's anybody that you know of that might be interested, because we're trying to recruit new talent, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am frantically like trying to call my best girlfriends and like, okay, and this person is, I think this person would be great. And I'm trying to, it's like the middle of a work day. I'm trying to reach people and I can't really reach anybody, but I'm leaving messages everywhere. I look on my phone because it's like lunchtime and I'm just thinking around and my kids are sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into my Twitter and there's a message, not even a message. It was like right on Twitter. It's not even like in the direct messages of Twitter. That's like, hey, Twila, it's Natalie. I'm so excited to be working with you. I can't wait for us to start working together. And I'm like,
and no one had even told you yet.
No. And I'm over here still trying to recruit like people because my boss said I could recruit people. What I didn't know is that she had left me a message, hung up the phone, and then another of our coworkers had come in and heard the conversation and said, oh, you should call Natalie.
Yeah.
And then my boss just went, oh yeah, Natalie, that'd be perfect. Like she never even had a chance to circle back.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Twitter, like in front, like out in public, and it's like, here's my new coworker. And I'm like, I don't, and there was no delicate way for me to be like, I don't know you. And I'm not Mariah Carey, so I did not go back out there and say, don't know her. Like I tried to be, like I was like, who?
Security.
Right. I was like, and so I did the most passive Midwestern thing you could do. I called my boss back and said, so I just saw something weird. Do you know who this lady is? And she's like, yeah, that's Natalie. She was like, I'm sorry, I haven't even had a chance to introduce you. And then she introduced us by email. And then she brought us in. Like, I think I actually talked to you that day.
Yeah.
And then we like came in and had dinner together. And then it just like, it worked out beautifully. We're here now.
Yeah.
But it always strikes me as funny is that my first impression of you was just like, and I'll be perfectly honest, like you went out on Twitter and said it. I was just like, sure. I mean, I was like, sure, Jan, sure you're working with me. And then I realized, wait, she is working with me. So,
well, that sums it up. And we hadn't met in person.
No, we had not. Not.
But don't you think in a way it's because on one hand you could go, well, but that's not really meeting her in person and getting that first impression. But really what happened, it's pretty much who I am.
Yeah, it is.
And
my very first impression was, you're very bold.
Direct, open, and putting it out there.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, to this point, it's why we get along because you're very much like that. And I don't know how I come across to people. I always know how I think I come across to people. Mm-hmm. And I think I usually come across to people as not super accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm usually like, you can get away from me anytime now.
For sure, because of the way in which we met, we immediately had to work together. And when you do, especially going into something like radio and you're about to do a live show with somebody who you really don't know well, you have a format to follow. And in a way, I think that worked for us because we really got to know each other through doing the show and doing it live and then during our prep time and all that.
Yeah, we figured all our hiccups out like in real time.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone who listened to our show listened to it as we went through it.
Right. And we would get sometimes we would get emails or texts like during the show from people like, did that just happen? Yeah. Did you just say that? Did you just do that? And we'd be like, yeah, I guess that's what happened today. Okay.
But that's what made it great and why we love working together now doing this show. But when you talk about that first initial impression, it's not always the case. In our case, it did work out to be that way. I was exactly who you thought I was.
Yes.
And the way I got to know you in the beginning, you stayed true to that. You're right. When she says she's not accessible, she's pretty right about it. Yep. But you can totally get her to open up. You just get her talking about something, and she'll let little snippets, sneak out.
Yeah, I have to get comfortable with you, and once I'm comfortable with you, like that's what always makes me laugh when I tell my friends I'm not a people person. I'm not comfortable around people. They're like, sure, that's not true. And then I go, no, that is true. It's just once you're my people, you're my people. Yeah. Like then I'm open book. But until that point, I am like closed book, locked in a box, buried underground in a cement vault.
So do you think then when you're out and about and meeting people and you have that first impression that you do give off that vibe of I'm just very like I'm putting my hand up?
Yes. I don't even put my hand up. Like my sister always says, you walk like you're about to walk. She goes, the way you walk sometimes looks like you're about to walk up on somebody and punch them in the face.
I would say that qualifies as not a good first impression.
No, and I can't. And it's always been a thing. Like I always try to contextualize, like, why do I present myself physically like that? Is it even conscious? And I don't think it's conscious. I grew up I was born in Detroit, and we lived there during the height of like the auto industry as the industry was declining and the neighborhoods were going bad.
Sure.
So my youngest memory, like my youngest visceral memory is being like 3 years old, my hand in my mom's pocket, and I could feel the pearl handle on her handgun. Wow. We used to walk to the store, and she'd have to have a handgun with her. And then we moved to Pennsylvania, and we lived through the steel mills, and it was like that wasn't always the safest place either.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really get to like calm down until we moved to the country. Like we moved to Virginia when I was like 12, and it was like, so this is what it's like when you can just like leave your door open. And mind you, we're city people, so it was like, do not leave your door open. Oh yeah, like that's not us. So I think I had been trained from an early age to like watch your back, and you know me to this day. You know me. If I'm at a restaurant with you or I'm at a bar with you, I always know where the you exit are. I don't like to sit with my back to the main floor. Like I like to see what's going on.
She's always ready to rumble.
I am.
The bat is never far away.
No, and I do have a bat in my car. It's not a joke. And so for years, I think I've always carried that kind of air of I'm going to protect myself first. And that transfers to everything, whether good, bad, or indifferent. Like I always say to people, sometimes when I talk to people, I sound very authoritative. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? Because
it's so true. And I can remember too, people would listen to our show be like, oh, Twila knows a lot about a lot of things.
And I'm like, no, I don't. I just have a lot of opinions, but I sound like I
no, but that. You really do know a lot about a lot of things, and your ability to remember things.
But that goes back to my like weird ADD like rabbit hole thing.
Yeah, she can sit there and throw out facts about, if you clip a rabbit's fingernails at 3 p.m, this will happen. Just bizarre, and the way she communicates it, which if you've been listening to our podcast, you believe everything she says because that sounds right.
Yeah, I always tell people, please remember to take what I say with a grain of salt. I just sound like you're supposed to do what I tell you.
Exactly, which is why you're a good parent.
Yeah, I always say I came with built-in mom voice, so it was nice to have kids to finally apply it to.
Now, I feel like I definitely make an impression. I'm not always convinced it's a good one.
No, I think you actually make a good impression.
I think people get off the bat that because I am so open and I'm curious about who they are, and you don't do what we do for a living and have issues talking about a lot of things.
Right.
You kind of really, when you do a live radio show, you get used to quick just kind of going with the first thing that pops out of your head, which is not always a good thing.
See, no, I don't. No, that's not. No, hold on.
No, but because you're guarded.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I should probably be more guarded like you are. I'll meet a mom at something, and 5 minutes into the conversation, I'm asking her, so how do you feel about oral sex? Is it something Are you still doing it? I'm curious. Women our age, like, I think it's the greatest thing
what?
ever.
I'm not gonna lie, she totally does stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
this is not a joke.
It does not faze her to ask like stuff like that, and you're just looking at her like, girl. These people don't know us.
But I'm genuinely curious, and because I'm also a writer, I'm a columnist. Sometimes I'm working on something, writing a piece, but I really want to get the opinion of women specifically in my demographic.
Right.
And I don't get out a lot, you know.
I mean, you get out more than me.
So my opportunities to do this are because you invited me over for a house party because somebody's selling something,
right.
or we're standing at the soccer sideline. And so, like I said, there's an impression. I'm just not sure.
See, all places I try to avoid.
What people think about that.
Yeah. I try to avoid these things like the play.
Well, that's because you're wearing headsets at your kids,
that aren't turned on.
Game. Yeah, that aren't turned on.
So, I mean,
And I'm engaging. I'm talking to people's grandparents.
Now, you know what's funny? When it's like, when the stakes are completely low and there's no, like when there's no stakes, like if I'm in line at the grocery store, if I'm picking out produce, on sale day at the grocery store, I will talk to you all day. Mm-hmm. Like somebody will be like, these Brussels sprouts look great. I'm like, yeah, they do, right? And we'll have a conversation. But if there's like some sort of stakes involved and I have to maybe deal with you multiple times.
So what qualifies as a stake?
Like first day of kids sport when you're going to spend the next like 15 games in postseason with people.
Sure.
So
you're more likely to disconnect, you're saying.
I'm more likely to clam up and be like, I don't want to do this. Like I don't, no. And it's even harder for me now that I have kids, because now there are people who, if my bad impression if I make a bad impression, then it trickles down to them.
Sure.
Or like with my husband's work, if I make a bad impression, then it trickles down to, him, because there's work people that now have this impression of his wife. Mm-hmm. And in those contexts, I don't think of myself as me, the person. I think of myself in the context of who I am to you.
Yeah. And that's important. So you want to keep it positive. I'm sure it's probably already gotten back to one of my stepkids. Hey, I met your stepmom, Natalie. Right off the bat, she asked me if I liked anal.
I'm gonna say your kids.
Yeah.
You have put away the therapy money, right? Like,
yeah.
We have a specific account that we call the therapy
good
funds.
Insurance.
Yeah, that's our thing. But yeah, I tend to get a little bit like spun out on, the idea that if the stakes are higher, then I'm worried about making a bad impression. Now, it's funny. I don't think like that in terms of this business. This has probably been the most like overt I've been. Now, mind you, I still don't naturally like smile at things. Like someone we used to work with gave me a really great piece of advice, and I'll send this podcast to her so she hears that I actually adhere to it. When you talk, you should smile, because it changes the structure of your face. It changes the way that the words come out. It changes how you hold your posture, and it even changes how the words come across.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, it was excellent advice, and I didn't know it at first. And I think when you go back and listen to old versions of us on the radio, when I was very like, I'm in charge here. You could hear me sounding like I was wrestling control of everything. And then, I would get to the point where it's like, once we actually started having fun together, you can hear the change.
Yeah.
And me being like, okay, I'm letting go of this. I'm just going to enjoy it a little bit more.
That is really, really good advice. Because I know when I've met some, and in most of these situations, I'm meeting other moms. And even with the dads, it's you're right. That smile, there's something warm and welcoming about that. That's great advice for anybody to follow.
And I'll be honest, because some people might have what I have, which is the affectionately referred to as resting bitch face. I do look really mad when I'm not smiling. I look like I'm determined to rip your throat out when I'm not smiling.
Yeah, some people do. And then you think me being the outsider person would kind of feel like, wow, that woman doesn't like me, or did I do something to offend her?
Right.
Because she's not smiling and she's not engaging in that initial interaction where you're first meeting people. I try to make an effort to smile. And it's funny. I used to feel, and Twila and I have talked about this, how I'm not someone who's always been comfortable in a large group setting, crowds of people, not my favorite thing. Going to a big party. And a big part of that is because I used to be worried and concerned about what would come flying out of my mouth, which are some of the things that we just talked about. And what changed for me is I didn't change who I was. I just finally accepted it. And that is who I am. And if it's making someone uncomfortable, then I like to think I can kind of see that cue, or if then they won't see me again. After
the
that,
cue is they run across the street when you come.
Yeah, exactly. But I know I like to get it all out there in the open up front, because it's like, this is who I am. You should know this now.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
if we are going to see each other 15 times, no, you should safely move down the row. If I make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're very upfront about that. See, I'm the opposite.
I am like
it's
a
very
steel
simple.
trap.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, you don't need to know anything about me. I don't need to know anything about you. There are lots of people that I interact with for the sake of my children whose names I've never learned. I just know their children's names.
Yeah, and it's ironic in a way, though, Twila, because you look at what we do for a living, and we do a podcast where we talk about the joys and the pitfalls of being a grown woman.
Yes,
and there are a lot of things we share. Every single show, we're opening up about something. It's just you and I sitting here, which is what I think makes it easy, because we're talking to each other, and we forget that.
We're in a windowless room.
No, I'm telling you, people, I leave the studio sometimes, and I'm in my car replaying the show in my head, and I go, oh no.
Yeah, like I said that.
Oh, that's not going to go over well. Note to self, kill the internet at the house when episode 21 comes out.
Right.
I
know what you mean. And we've both done it.
We've done it, and we'll continue to do it. But if you were meeting someone at a soccer game, you wouldn't have the same in-depth conversation that you would openly have doing our show. It's a whole different venue and different time and place. I think that's an interesting difference about us, which I love because I find it fascinating. I would. And you're more, but in person, you're really more. No one would ever think you did this for a living if I had to guess.
No, I'm very no nonsense about things. And I always think it's funny because I've spent a lot of time wondering, do I make a bad, like what kind of impression I make with different groups of people?
Sure.
Because I don't think it's the same across the board.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to say, if you have met us in person, if you could please reach out to us on Facebook through the Matriarch Digital Media Facebook page.
No.
I'd like to know.
I don't know. No, because a bunch of people are going to realize for the first time that I've been lying to them when they run into me in public. They're going to be like, that black lady in the Target was Twila. She didn't
look us up, Natalie Webster, Twila Dang. And maybe Twila doesn't want to hear it. But
yeah,
I'd love to hear what you first thought of Twila.
And I'll be honest, I'm different. I'm even probably a different animal in social media than I am in real life. Like I think I very much fall under the parameters of and I have to find this and post it someplace. It's the old, there was an old article that Neil Patrick Harris did where he discussed the differences between having a public life, a private life, and a personal life. So
yes.
I feel like these spheres are public. Like this is our public life. My social media is public. I share things. I talk about my experience, my opinions. My personal life is, within this context, things about me. I'm married. I have kids. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I may tell you funny anecdotes and asides. But you don't know my private life. You don't know my heart. You don't know, what we struggle with always. You don't know what the specifics are of situations because that's the private part of it.
Sure.
So sometimes my personal life comes off a little bit persona-like when you see it on social media. But because I understand what I'm willing to share and I understand that other people haven't taken this on as their profession. So my husband is not a public figure. My kids aren't. My siblings aren't. My friends aren't. They're just connected to a public figure. So I try to be really respectful of that as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. That's a challenge.
It is a real challenge, especially when they're making you mad. And you're just like, you wanted to go there yesterday? Because I'm recording today. Like you want to, you got jokes?
Give me something to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm always like, you got jokes today? I'm recording tomorrow. Let's see how that works. Let's talk about that. And then I've learned over time that people tend to think if I say my friend, I'm talking about myself. I'm really not.
Yeah.
Like I do own my junk.
Yeah.
But so I'll be like, a friend, this happened to my friend. And people be like, sure, it happened to your friend Twila. And I'm like, no, really, it happened to my friend. I told you guys in a public forum that I broke a toilet seat at 9 months pregnant. I don't have a problem telling you about my life. I don't have a problem telling you that things happen to me.
Yeah. But you wouldn't share that same story necessarily on the sideline at soccer.
No.
Yeah.
No, because my thing is, I don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I know you, if we're cool, then yeah, I will tell you all my stories. Like, even with my friends, if you ask my friends, they know there's certain level of friendship. Like they know certain friends know certain stories and certain friends don't because you haven't reached that level with me. If you're at that level with me, it's open, when you hit open book, everything is that's sacred territory.
But you do realize though, a lot of these stories you share on here on the podcast and you're telling, what do we have now? Like, I don't know, 8-9 million listeners.
wait, why are we laughing? Yes, we do.
That's right. We do. We totally do.
We are worldwide.
National. Oh, yeah, worldwide. That's
Thank
right.
you.
I always say national platform, but you're
Yes,
right. We are worldwide.
We're important. That's all you need to know.
But it is interesting. I can think of many, many times where I've met someone and I'll give you a specific example. I was on a committee, a volunteer committee to do this girls' night out event in the town I live in. Mm-hmm. And I met a woman. I'll just say her name's Connie. I've already told her this.
Okay.
And in the meeting, the first couple of meetings I went in with her, I thought, oh my gosh, this lady's so bitchy. She's just rude, you know?
And you made this right? Like, it's all right. We're cool with this, right? I'm not going to get an email from Connie like, she just called me bitchy on your podcast.
I'm pretty sure I told her, and if not, she is a real busy woman. She's not. Connie is not listening to this.
She's not listening anyway.
She's busy. But then I got to know her, and I spent time with her, and she ended up becoming one of my closest friends. She ended up becoming one of the people that had such an amazing impact on my life in the oddest ways. Like, I met Tony because he was her neighbor.
Oh, right.
And she was my good friend. And we met at her son's baby shower.
Okay.
You know, all these kind of different things. And I've known her now for years and love and adore her and know her today as one of the most kind-hearted, will give you the shirt off her back. And her first impression with me, I took and I mistook as being bitchy. And you know what? Actually, no, she was being bitchy, but she was being had a lot of passion about what she was trying to get done.
Right.
And there was anger mixed in there, and that was coming through. So what I took as a first impression wasn't incorrect, but it shouldn't have. It's not who she is. You know, we all have that moment where we're caught in a situation that is not giving you the full context of who we are. I don't think you can get to know anybody in 5 minutes. You know, it's not speed dating. You know, which doesn't work.
Know what? I think we're both good at that, at not letting a first impression be the only impression.
Yeah. No, because I know what an idiot I come off as sometimes.
Well, see, and that's what I worry about, is that I don't think everybody has the ability to do that, to say in the context of whatever's going on, this might be, they're having a moment, there's something's going on, I'm not going to judge it based on that. Yeah. And then I said, given how I know I naturally come across, then I just go, that one's going down. Like, there usually isn't. And I'll be honest, for years, and in particular as a young person, for years, I always made like a terrible first impression with moms, with
other moms of your kids' friends.
No, I mean, like, all the way back to, like, I'd be trying to date a boy, and some reason their mom just did not like me.
Wow.
Yeah, and it would be
Was it the chronic resting bitch face?
I think partially. Mind you, I also had a penchant for dating these boys who never dated outside their race before, so that always made it difficult. You know, first, black girls with resting bitch face are not good. No, not good. And I had it, so I always had a little bit of difficulty with that too. And I used to always and the thing is, back then I would try too hard, and I think that came off as disingenuous. I think you can tell when somebody's being phony. So when I was trying to be like, hi, how are you? It's really nice to meet you. It just didn't, it didn't work. My sister teases me to this day because that's where I developed my, as she says, I give good white girl voice, or good. She goes, you give good professional white girl voice.
Yeah, you do.
And I think I developed that for two reasons. One, because we moved around a lot and I wanted to drop my accent. So I used to mimic Peter Jennings on television. Just speak the way that he would speak. And, so with the diction and the, everything. Sure. And then I would push up my cadence, because the tone of my voice, because when you sound like you're speaking with a deeper voice like mine is, you sound either angry or bossy or authoritative. And I've accepted it now, but back then I would be so desperate not to have you have any, I would be really desperate for you to try to like me. Yeah. So I would just immediately put this affect on my voice that was really sugary and high and bubbly, and be like,
and came across as inauthentic, you're saying?
Yeah, it was, and it came off as super she is so full of crap.
So then people have that first impression of you, then they get to know you and they're like, what?
Right. Because once you got comfortable with me, I'd be right back into me mode. And be like, that's dumb. I'd be real quick to tell you, this is what I know, and this is what I learned, and this is what my mama said. Because, I'm always telling people what my mama said. And, I would just come across as, and mind you, At 43, you can have this voice and sound authoritative, and you finally kind of have the boots to fill it.
Yeah.
At 19, you don't.
You just sound like a smart ass.
Yeah. At 22, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of my most visceral memories is having a dean of students at the college I attended tell me that she thought I was a caustic person because I wouldn't back down from a point that I was making. And I didn't know it was a nasty word until I went home and looked it up later. And I was like, she called me this in front of a room full of adults, like actual people who get paychecks. And I was just a student.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that sucks. That, and then it, like I said, it sent me in like a spiral of, am I making this poor of an impression? Yeah. I know now as an adult, I wasn't. I know now that as a kid standing up for themselves, it was hard for them to take. Yeah. They weren't used to having somebody be so resolute.
Well, especially at that young of an age.
Right.
Which really is a good skill to have. But you're right. When you have more that background of years of experience to kind of stand on, I think people take it more like, oh, of course she knows what she's talking about. She's been doing this.
Right. They'll give you age will give you the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time. And age will give you kind of the backbone to back up that kind of thing. And that's like, I always tell people, I don't always make the best first impression. But I know I make a good lasting impression.
Yeah, that's true.
I know if you're in my circle, I'm a warrior. I'll fight for you. I'll show up anywhere, anytime. I'm that person. I know that.
Do you think, let me ask you this. So we're talking about whether or not we think we make a good first impression.
Yep.
In this age of social media, it's often that we see someone on social media, whether we're friends or not. Mm-hmm. We see them in pictures with friends, in communities, you run in the same circles or similar circles. Does it affect your first impression of someone when you meet them in real life, when you have maybe some information? Maybe you went to their page and maybe everything wasn't locked down tight and you could see, oh, they like to do yoga or she really loves dogs or, whatever it is.
Yeah, it does. And you know why? Because I won't even, I'll usually do a little bit of the social media stalk before I even agree to follow you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, when you're meeting, so it's by accident. So let's say that you have a friend in common with Jane.
Yeah.
And your friend is posting photos of her and Jane doing shots on the weekend at some whatever, which nothing wrong with that. Yeah. As long as you have someone who's driving.
Exactly.
And then you meet Jane in person. Does it affect your first impression of her based on what you know or you think you know?
I'm not going to lie.
Maybe it was Jane's 40th birthday.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, know me.
It just naturally does.
You know me. I can't even watch Tom Cruise movies because I know what I know about Scientology now.
Yeah.
So, you know me. You know I'm that person.
Yeah.
I have a very, I don't know why I always call it a weirdly specific moral core about things. But if something rubs me the wrong way based on who I've chosen to be as a person, how I conduct myself as a person.
Sure.
It will impact how I deal with you as a person. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And it isn't even necessarily me trying to be judgmental of you as a person. I'll just, sometimes in my head, I'll just go, that's not my kind of people. You're not my people. And that's okay. Sometimes you're not going to be my people.
Mm-hmm. I think it's changed a lot, especially when you talk about meeting someone for the first time in your own community when there's already somewhat of a connection. Think about too, if I've had this happen where someone has maybe followed the column that I write in the community and I share a lot about my personal life and things going on. And then I meet them for the first time in real life. Or they used to listen to us when we were on the radio and I would get to know someone, and multiple times, here's what I would hear when they would actually meet me in person. They would say a couple things. They go, wow, you're much more down to earth than I thought you would be, which I still don't know how to take that. Like, what?
I can help you contextualize. Go on.
Well, I'll tell you the second one. And the second one is you're so much more quiet than I thought you would be.
Right.
And that made more sense to me because when you're in radio or you're doing a podcast, it's your job to share your strong opinion and to communicate and to talk. That doesn't mean that you're doing that in your everyday
people do that a lot. People assume that you are going to be the life of the party or the center.
And I'm not.
You're going to hold court, or you're going to be much more gregarious or magnanimous or open.
And you know me, Twila, I am the life of the party until about 8:45. Then I'm out.
Well, you know me. Half the time I'm not coming to the party, so I'm the one texting who's at the party? Do I have to come?
That's right. We want to be invited. We're just
later.
Not going to go.
Yeah, exactly. I'll swing by later. Is that all right? Like, I'll close down the party. I'm not necessessly going to come and like.
I'll drive by and check in from my car.
Yeah, I am not. Yeah, I can tell you right now, I am not the party starter. No.
Yeah.
And but I think we've both experienced that, where people meet you and go, "Oh, you're much more.
You're much calmer."
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny, and because of the dynamic that we had, and the way we came across a lot of the time, a lot of the time on radio, if you listen to us, and the reason why we worked is because a lot of the time I came across as like weirdly know-it-all about weird stuff, and Natalie came across in a really good way of being like, I'm going to take the air out of your sails now, like, and it was our dynamic, and it's what worked well for us. Like I always said you didn't like it, and I think I used to say this to people, and they would get like offended on your behalf. I'd be like, Natalie does not like to prepare, and they're like,
totally.
They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, she likes it if I prepare and I have all this information and I distill it to her, and she likes to react to what I'm telling her.
Yeah, exactly.
She doesn't like to have all the information herself. So
because I'm not going to remember.
Yeah, I would send her like dossiers of information. It'd be like 40 pages to get ready for the show, and she'd be like, "Girl, just tell me when we get in there."
Yeah,
but it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we worked. And I think that for me, that would always, like, now I get places, and because I used to do that for radio, because like I said, with my OCD tendency or ADD tendency of down the rabbit hole, on air I would know a lot of ridiculous information about whatever we talked about, because I liked having that.
Yeah, you'll research it, you'll study it, you'll immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, I do. I immerse myself.
But when you're at a party or you're at something, you're not a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, now you think I'm like a history of movies. No, I'm
not
a history of movies, I promise.
And I remember, totally. And I could see how people would think that, well, Twila knows a lot about, these movies.
Yeah, I get, what's funny? I get put on the spot a lot by people trying to prove me wrong. And I'm like, for real, y'all, I'm not trying to be right. And then what's worse is a lot of the time I am right. So then it's like, and I'm guessing. And I'm like, I didn't. Like now, like I can't even dispel it, because there's no way to, if I know something, I just happen to know it, and I don't mean to come across as, like a know-it-all. And I think a lot of times when you come off as a know-it-all, people want to make sure to take you down a peg. And I'm like, y'all got to work that hard. I don't think that highly of myself. It's okay.
Well, and even with the podcast, we have a sheet where when we each think of questions, throw them up on there.
Yes.
We don't discuss it before we do the show. Sometimes we don't even know. Well, mainly me, because I forget the question.
Okay,
it gets asked.
Well, what's funny in terms of like first impression stuff. Like I'll meet people that knew us from what we do then and what we do now.
Yeah,
and they are always stunned to realize that we're not in each other's pockets all the time. Like they're like, what do you mean you haven't seen Natalie in 2 weeks? But you talked to her, right? I'm like, no, and they're like, well, why? Did you guys have a fight? And I'm like, no, I said we purposely don't talk outside of the show. If we're talking outside the show, then we've worked it out. By the time we get back together, we either can't remember what we talked about, or or it winds up sounding like we're retelling a story we told each other already. And we don't like to do that. So we do our very best to kind of keep ourselves separate. We'll text during the week or something if something comes up, and we email when we need to, but we purposely kind of keep ourselves separate so that we actually have something to bring to the table when we're together.
And if it does come out, like let's say we're at a same event together, we don't talk about the show and things like that.
Yeah, or sometimes we'll be talking. I'll go, okay, stop talking now.
Yeah, that's right.
This is good.
And that's all she has to say, and we stop.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll, okay, shut up. We're not doing that anymore. This is good. We'll leave it for the show. But that like kind of makes its own kind of impression with people, when they're trying to do things. So I can honestly say that, I think as a young person, I made a terrible impression. As a middle-aged person, I made a better impression. Mm-hmm. I make a good impression as a mom because I'm not afraid to tell you if it looks like you need help with something. But I don't laugh.
You basically just said, I make a good impression as a mom because I'm not afraid to tell you how to parent your kid.
Yeah. Because listen,
but it's true.
Well, listen, and here's why it works. Because I know what it sounds like. It sounds obnoxious and jerk-like, but it works because what usually happens is when you're drowning in that moment with your kid or whatever,
you don't have the perspective.
Right? You don't always have the perspective, and sometimes you really just want a little assurance that it's okay.
Yep.
So I don't walk up to you like I've seen this. There's a difference between sometimes what I do and what I like to call benevolent white people, which are people who like people approach me when my kids are in meltdown mode and want to help my kid, and they bypass me as the adult. So they're like, "Honey, are you okay?" I'm like, "You're talking to my kid. I don't know you. Back up." And then it's a thing. You know, like sometimes I'll like if I'm in sort of mom mode like that and we're out in public, I don't ever take the opportunity to be like, let me tell you how to parent your child. No, like,
but you're saying if you see a situation happening, you're going to address the parent, not the child.
Yeah, one, I always address the parent. You know, always.
Yeah.
Don't address the kid. That's creepy and weird. And you know you'd freak out if some adult just started talking to your kid while you're standing there. It's weird. But I also try to sort of see where the solidarity is in that moment. If there's something going on, like I can't tell you how many times I've been to the Mall of America to stand in a long line while we wait for some poor soul stuck in a furry costume to come out to take a photo. And my kid's melting and your kid's melting down, and somewhere in that moment there's solidarity where you're just like, oh, bless you, bless their heart. They're panicking right now, and the mom is like, oh, I know, and we're kind of desperate to get out of the line, and I'm like, well, you know, and she's like, well, I need to go to the bathroom, and like I don't want to take all this stuff out of line. Okay, well, go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, I said, listen, I know you don't know me, but I got no reason to lie, and there's cameras everywhere. So go to the bathroom and come back. You know, it's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, like that, like those small moments where you can just be helpful. I mean. And sometimes you wind up giving the impression that you're open to being helpful to people, because I think sometimes it's even about like that link of sympathy that they get or something. I get all the time. I have biracial children. I made a point when I had my biracial children to make sure that my children's hair and heads and appearance looked kept and well maintained. One, because my mother would kill me, and two, because their hair is different than mine, and I want them to feel as good about themselves as I feel about me.
Yeah.
And we all know how much I feel good about me. So I want them to feel that way too. So my kids will be out in the world, and quite often we'll get approached by parents of other biracial children, and they'll ask me, her hair is gorgeous. Thank you very much. Do you mind me asking, like, what do you put in it? Oh, well, listen, we got a whole thing. Like I have this down to such a science now that there's an email that I have that I sent to myself. And when you ask for it, I just say, hey, give me your email. I'll send you the email.
Yeah.
And it's got all the products and the books and everything in it. Yeah, it's a document.
Yeah.
And my daughter has rolled her eyes for years over this. But recently she came to me and said that she really appreciates that I take the time to do that for somebody else, because that's hard when you don't want to make that impression.
When you haven't done it and you have that experience, and when you can share that is a lot better. That's really good advice. I'm feeling bad now in the way that I interfere with other people's kids in public. I'm sitting here thinking about it and go, no. Well, maybe kind of.
Do you public shame them?
Kind of. I'm not going to say I haven't done that. I've had a couple instances of a kid. The two parents were there. This happened in Target, and the kid was just like going off on the mom, and then it caused this friction because I'm nosy, so I was eavesdropping.
Right, so she was all in it. See, like me, I'm over in the corner with like my camera phone, taping it for my sister, like for 30 seconds to go see what happens in Target, and then that's it.
I'm eavesdropping. I'm listening to this play out. The parents start bickering. The kid goes around the corner, so I follow the kid, and I make like I'm looking at something on the shelf, and I lean over to him and I say, fights like that leads to the divorce.
You did not do that.
I did. I'm like, so you keep that kind of stuff up? Don't be surprised if your parents split down the road.
I cannot believe you did that.
Yeah, I don't think he could believe it either.
I know.
He needed a little bit of scared straight. I mean, this kid was being a butt. This was not.
Wow.
This was not. I mean, it was outright. How the two parents didn't see that he was stirring this whole thing up between them and playing them off each other.
Well, because they had all their honed and dynamic that was messed
when they
up.
were in it and lacking that perspective.
Yeah.
So
but that's amazing that you did that.
And I've done it more than one time.
Wow.
Even if it's talking back to the mom and being rude to the mother. I'll wait till I get that kid alone and say something. Be like, you stressing your mom out like that. God forbid she have a heart attack because of you.
Okay, see, no.
That's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe not, no. But Twila, don't you think a little bit of scared straight?
Okay,
come on, you think they really believe me?
Listen, Natalie,
it's true. There's truth in it.
Okay, I'm not even saying there's not truth in it. I'm just going to tell you what would happen if you if I was the mom and you came up and said that to my kid,
I don't do it in front of the parents.
No, of course
Twila,
not,
I'm not stupid.
But here's what happens in our universe, because my kids are dangs and they've been taught to come and tell me things when things are weird.
Yeah.
My kid would come back to me and be like, Mom, do you know what that lady just said? And then they would have told me. And then I would have been like, point her out. And then our whole trip to Target would be abandoned because we would follow you around the store till I find you. And when I find you, here's exactly how the conversation would go, because it would be one-sided. You wouldn't get to talk. I'd say it like in my Sugaree's voice. I would put on my proper white lady for you. I'd be like, excuse me. Hi. Were you talking to my son? And then you go, yeah, I was. Okay, look, what you're not going to do. And then it would turn into a whole thing. Like there would be security tape of at Target of me like pointing in your face. Handling all my business.
They'd have great footage for the news because it would be the camera shot of me leaning over into the boy's ear.
Right. And then, and then it'd be like me just going crazy and then snatching my kid up by the collar and walking out of Target. That would be it.
Yeah, that hasn't happened. But I'm also not dumb enough to, do it to a woman of color's kid. I'm not stupid.
Oh, you're going to get emails for that.
I'm sorry. And, and I'm multiracial. And
yes.
And traditionally, especially in the Midwest, Caucasian parents aren't that confrontational.
Yes,
you get one once in a while.
They're not
but
confrontational.
Not really.
They're just super passive aggressive. So they don't.
Totally.
Instead of saying something to you, they say something to your kid. Or instead of saying something to you about the situation they're in, they go alert security that something weird's going on.
Yeah, they'll go and tell security. That's exactly. They're not. And then what? Then it's his word against mine.
Right.
And who's going to believe who? They're going to believe me, the adult. The parent already thinks but they know.
No,
this
that's
kid. You can
tell
that's
your light skin color of privilege right there. Because if somebody reports me and my kid in aisle 7 for an altercation, the first thing that's going to happen is a bunch of adults are going to show up and be like, "Timmy, are you okay?" And then I'll be like, "Timmy's fine." They're like, "Ma'am, we're not speaking to you. Timmy, are you okay? Do you need help? Is this person with you?" And then, by the time it's all said and done, I'm on the 4:00 news because I'm in cuffs in the back of a car and they've called CYS to pick up my kid. And now my husband's got to leave work because I've clowned in public.
That's true. So I exercise my white privilege.
All the emails we're going to get.
Scottish and Irish comes out, and I just say it like it is.
See, and I'm like 1/32 Irish. I don't get to claim it for nothing, except for like the 3 straight red hairs I have.
If it's winter, I pass really well, but in the summer, I get so dark.
Nope. That's never going to happen. I can't wait to get my ancestry DNA so I can just go around Ireland and just full tilt, be like, my people, and mess with everybody. Because I know we are. I know for a fact that we are. If just by virtue of the
go
plantation
to Ireland and make all kinds of first impressions.
Yep, can't wait. Cannot wait. I'm going to do all of it. I'm gonna be full tilt. My maiden name is Register. That's an Irish last name.
Dang. Oh, your maiden name?
Yeah, it's Register.
Oh.
And we know we got it from the plantation where we used to live. And there's too many of us with thin noses and red hair to not have some of it in our genetic lineage. So I'm gonna go find it.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. So I'm sorry, as I've derailed you enough. So I do have, I guess I have a sort of quick side question. If you're worried that you don't make a good first impression, what can you do? Can you actually do something to avoid making a bad first impression?
Well, for me personally, I'm not worried about it anymore because like I said, I want people to know right off the bat, I'm going to ask you what you think about oral sex or,
Yeah, you're going to just ask.
I'm just going to ask if I want to know because I'm genuinely curious. And, if that's not okay, then that's not okay. And the biggest thing I learned is just in accepting that that's who I am and being okay with it, especially since I quit drinking and I got sober. And I told you this, Twila. I used to think I had to drink in social situations so I would behave more.
Right.
Most people drink and they get out of hand. Not that I didn't do that too.
Yeah, no, but you used to use it as a calming mechanism.
Yeah, I used to use it as a calming mechanism to calm myself down a little bit and not be so animated and open.
Right.
And that's what gave me the anxiety, and the social anxiety was fighting who I was. And then when I found myself not drinking and I quit drinking and got sober and being in these same situations, I was so much more engaged, and still interested, curious, and yes, by a lot of standards, inappropriate, but good with it. No anxiety, zero social anxiety, because I was being who I am.
Yeah, you were being yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I used to always joke that the reason we worked well together at public events is because you used to line them up and I would knock them down. So I used to say that all the time. Like I'm not good for a good first impression, but I'm good for a lasting impression. So you're good at drawing people into us. And then if we were trying to like get them to do the show or something, all you do is leave them with me. And the one thing, and that was a quality I didn't even realize I had, and how often I use it until I started this business. Yeah. I don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. And you're a really good closer, and I'm good. I'll go up to anybody that I'm curious about or want to talk to, and I'll do that.
Yeah, you will walk into a room and pinpoint, go, that person looks interesting, that person looks interesting. And I'm always looking for like the exit.
And who might possibly rob me. Yeah,
like that's usually me. I'm like, okay, there's the exit. You look sketchy, so I'm going over here. And then I'll kind of stand in the corner and nurse my drink until, and I do look for the quirky people. If you are functionally odd in the circumstance we're in, I am now a magnet. I cannot stay away from you. It's just like, remember I told you the year I went out for my birthday, and we walked into this full service restaurant, like a regular restaurant, and there was a guy that was dressed as a mime at the bar.
Oh yeah. And
I was like, you're my people. That's me. If there's anything odd about you, just off the top, we are about to be besties.
Oh, I know.
You could probably tell me you're a serial killer, and I'll be like, okay, well, I mean, as long as I'm facing the exit and I know how to get out, we can continue to talk because you're odd and I want to talk to you.
I find myself drawn to 3 types of people at any big gathering. 1, anybody wwho's gay. I love the gays. Secondly, I love minorities because I love our... Twila's almost falling out of her chair for some reason.
I'm just waiting for the emails. Just getting for the email.
I'm going to seek you out if I see you gay at a party because I love you. If you're a minority, because I want to learn more about your culture. And little people. And there's not enough of them at parties or any place else for me to meet.
Yeah. I know this.
Those are probably my 3 biggest fascinations.
Yes, that's true. And she does, and she's not kidding when she says she has genuine fascination.
Yeah, I have genuine feelings
where
too.
I have to remind her, don't just walk up to people and just like, because she'll be like, you're a little person, I love you. Yeah. And like, no, we don't do that. They're still a person. You have to like engage them like a regular person does.
I know my friend Victor, who I've been friends with now for a few years, he walked into a restaurant. I took one look at him. I went, gay and black? Oh my gosh. If he were shorter, this would be the trifecta.
Yeah. And she probably told him that when she met him.
Oh, totally.
First impression.
Yeah. Right. I mistook him for another guy. I knew because my vision is horrible too. I need to really get some glasses. I thought he was someone else from a distance.
Yeah. See, and like I said, I'm always the opposite. Like I will scan the room. Like, I'm the person that's great for, like, if something bad does happen in the room, because I've been taking the optics of the room all night. So I'm like, oh, your suspect was 5'4", wearing a green jacket. He had 3 days worth of stubble. I watched him go to the bathroom twice. He stopped and looked at the cheese funny. That's how I knew something was wrong with him. You know? That's me all day.
You're all Law and Order at every public event.
Yeah. My husband's always like, when did you even have time to see that? Like, we'll get home and I'll be like, did you see that couple in the corner that did this thing? And he's like, how did you even see that? And I'm like, because weren't we at the same thing? And he's like, I was watching the game.
But at least your first impression that you give does meet overall your personality and what
you see is what you get. Like once even when you get to know me, I warm up to you as a person, but I am still the same sort of acerbic,
like
authoritative.
Still like, no, I'm not doing that, or yes, I am doing that.
Yeah, I'm still unapologetically myself. So it's never a bait and switch. I'm not catfishing you in real life. It's pretty good. All right, so we should ask. Did we answer our own question today? Do you make a bad first impression?
I'm going to go with no. I don't make a bad. That would mean I make a good one, right?
Yeah. Yes. You believe you make a good first impression.
I make an accurate first impression.
Okay. I still believe I make a terrible first impression, but I make a good lasting impression.
That's
so
right.
Stick with it past the first 20 minutes. I promise y'all I'm worth it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We want to know what you guys think. You have to email the show. Go to Facebook and type in Matriarch Digital Media, but you shouldn't have to because you've already liked the page.
Mm-hmm.
If you've liked the page, it's right there in your little column of things, and you can just go select it. There's a send message option, and you can click on that and send a message to us at any time. We want to hear about you. We want to hear about what you're thinking. We want to hear about if you like the show. We want you to suggest topics. Let us know what things you want us to talk about. Basically, throw us a question out there. And if it's a good question, we will definitely talk about it. Mm-hmm. And if it's a question that applies to our life and it's messy, we'll definitely talk about it. So let us know. We want to hear from you. As always, doing the show is an honor and a privilege, and we're having a ball doing it. And we couldn't do it without you. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.